I was an alcoholic from a very young age. I'd say from about 18 when I met a friend, someone who became a friend, and she was already an alcoholic. She was 4 years older than myself. But before that, I grew up in a family who were alcoholics, even though they didn't recognize or they didn't say they were alcoholics. I remembered I was about 4 years old, and I think it was around my 4th birthday. I was given cider to drink because they said it will kill the worms. I remember being drunk then and being sick. During my teenage years, I didn't drink, but when I met this friend, she was drinking, and I started drinking from then on. My husband was an alcoholic. I got married to an alcoholic as well. And I used to try and keep up with drinking. We'd go to the pub and we'd drink there, we'd drink at home, family parties. Every weekend we drank with my parents, my cousins. And it just went on from there. I became addicted when my marriage broke down, and to sleep at nights because there were so many things going on in my mind and I couldn't really cope with them. I'd be fine during the day, but come evening time, I'd have to have a drink just to forget, to go to sleep. My lowest point was when I was at the hospital, and because of my drinking and the other problems I had, which contributed to the drinking, my GP told me that I had problems with my liver. I started having problems with my liver.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Finding Answers. Families can be one of the greatest sources of joy and happiness when there is unity, when two people, or usually families are much larger than two people, when they love each other, when they respect each other, and want the best for each other. Families can do amazing things, extraordinary things to make sure that those that they love are looked after. Sometimes there are family members who travel abroad, who start a life in a different country just so that they can provide for those who are back home. Perhaps you're watching me now and that's your case. There are families who sacrifice their time and energy to make sure that their loved ones are looked after. And that, of course, brings you a great reassurance that your family loves you, that you are not alone, that, if you fall on hard times, someone will be there to help you. The problem is when families start going one against the other, when there's a rift, when there's a separation in the family, a gap in the family, for whatever reason. And sometimes it is something silly. Sometimes family members stop speaking to each other because of a silly argument, a misunderstanding. That one person said something which they meant no harm, but the other one misunderstood what they said, and this caused great problems. And this is the joy or the sadness with families. It can be, your greatest comfort to know that no matter what you go through, they are there to support you. But it can also be a cause for pain because you may have people, many people who carry the same blood, the same surname that you do, but you can't count on them because of the problems that have existed among you. But things can change. I want you to watch this video that we've made to illustrate what happens in many families.
We all know that family feuds can be the worst feuds of all. If you're in the middle of a family feud, whether it involves money or not, ask yourself, is it worth losing a loved one over? Choose to forgive. Holding on to a grudge will only eat you up inside and cause huge family rifts. The only thing worse than not speaking to a family member for 3 years is not speaking to them for 3 years and 1 day. Sometimes relationships need a hero. That means someone has to step up and be the bigger person to close the gap. Someone has to make the first move, the first compromise to heal the relationship. Swallow your pride and be that person Think of how this feud is affecting the rest of your family. Perhaps you have brothers and sisters, or uncles and aunts. Are there other family members or children caught in the middle? Think of the unnecessary stress you may be putting on others. Step into the other person's shoes and try to see their side of the story. Try to understand the other person and why they acted in a hurtful way. If you can, try not to judge them. In a perfect world, if you could write the script of your life, what would your relationship with that person be like? Start creating that relationship now. Reach out to your family member and ask them to talk to you. Start with an apology for whatever part you may have played in this feud. Take responsibility for your actions. Explain why this relationship is important to you and affirm your love for the other person. Family feuds don't have to take over and be the be-all and end-all of your family. It's easier than you think to say sorry.
That's a very important advice, that sometimes to fix a problem in the family, it only takes one person making a step. Because sometimes the two people that don't talk to each other are hoping, are expecting the other one to do something about it. While the other one is also expecting the other one to come forward and say, I'm sorry. And saying I'm sorry is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows that you will do anything to get your family back together. I want to invite you, if you're watching me now, and your family are at this moment going through different problems, separation, maybe you have, it's not just a fact of people not talking to each other. You have people that you truly love and care about in your family that are struggling with an addiction. People that may be making very bad choices. And for that, we have prayer. For that, we have God. A prayer that is called a prayer of intercession that we will be making at the end of this program, where we'll be asking God to change your family members. If you have people in your family that you're worried about, you can call the show now and you can give us their names for prayer. We will be praying for them here. The number to call is 020-7686-6300. Give us a call, tell us what's happening, and give us their names. We will be praying for them. And don't worry, because we won't be mentioning their names on air. If you want to send us an email and tell us your story, tell us the problem that you're going through, the email address is help@findinganswers.tv. Perhaps this program tonight can be the beginning of a change, of a new chapter in your love life. The beginning of a total transformation of your family. But for that to happen, it has to start with someone. One person can be the defining factor in that change that you're looking for in your family, okay? We're gonna go to a break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to someone who knows what it's like to have a broken family. She had one, but by the power of her faith, her family has been restored. We'll be back in just a moment.
How can you rebuild the shreds of a shattered past? Let us help you.
So, maybe you're thinking about making some big changes or setting some ambitious goals for yourself. Maybe you want to lose 20 pounds or read through the Bible. Maybe you want to run a marathon or repair a broken relationship. Whatever your big goal is, the temptation is to expect to go straight from here to here, or from here to here. The reality is, there are a lot of small steps between big decisions and big results. Challenges and obstacles await. At some point, you might even want to quit. But stand firm. Don't be disappointed with slow progress. Don't be overwhelmed by the destination. Rather, focus on what you can do today. Skip dessert. Read a chapter. Go for a run. Make a phone call. The more difficult the journey, the more rewarding the destination. And it can all start today with just one small step.
Welcome back. Remember that today we're talking about family feuds, family problems in general. You may not have a feud, an argument that has caused separation in your family, but maybe you are worried about someone that you care about, that you love in your family. If that's the case, then get in touch with us, because we'll be making a prayer at the end of this program for all the families. I want to introduce you now to our success story of today. Let's meet Marie, who's in the studio with us.
Pushing me for the rest of the week, so it's like a boost.
Things were really tight.
Today, the way I see myself is completely different.
So I have here Marie with me. How are you, Marie?
I'm good, thank you.
You have a story in your family as well, right?
Yes.
What's the story? What happened in your family?
Well, there was many things that happened, but to cut everything, to put it all together, it started off when we actually moved here to London, because we was living in Belgium, because that was like the peak of my father's career. So he was studying, he was also teaching at university, and he was doing medicine at the time. So all the family, from everything that I can remember, my family was always together. We never lacked anything. We was always happy. But then from the decision that my mother made to actually move to the UK, I believe that is where everything began to change for us, to change for the family, because what had happened was she came over with us first, and my father actually stayed in Belgium, and he made the decision to sacrifice everything. So he left his career, he left everything that he was doing there to come over to the UK. So when he did that, it was basically like he was starting all over again. And from there, it was like the relationship between my mum and dad was not the same.
Who made the decision to come over?
My mum.
Your mum. So do you feel that your dad, because he had to sacrifice everything there, do you feel that he resented her decision and he was...
It was from there. It was from there. From the decision that she made, for him, he didn't understand why. But because my dad is very family orientated, so everything to do with him, every decision that he makes is always in regards to the family, and he always puts his family first. So from the decision that my mum made to come over, for him, he felt that he could not leave his family there, and then he continues with his career there. So he decided to sacrifice everything and then come over to the UK so that the family would remain together. But what ended up happening was actually that was the initiation of the separation between my family.
So that's where the problems began.
Yes.
So when you got here to England, your whole family came here, what started to happen?
Well, like I said, from when my dad arrived, at the beginning we was there, it took, I believe it was like a year or so until my dad came over. At the beginning, everything was okay because we was all together, but because I believe there was like a lot of frustration with my dad. First of all, he didn't speak the language. He had degrees, he had everything, the potential to do well, career-wise, financially-wise, and it was like he was not able to advance. And because of that frustration, you could see that there began to be like a tension in between my mum and my dad. There would be like arguments, but at the beginning they tried to hide it from us. There was a lot of covering up. There was a lot of, like, you know, they tried to protect us from that. But I believe that because that frustration got to the point that he was not able to bear it anymore. And my dad is a very motivated person. So when he knows that he wants something, he goes after it. But because there was that language barrier, he had to begin from scratch. And from there, that was when, you know, the problems inside of the house became even more. And it was the frustration on my mum's side as well, because she didn't speak the language. So it was basically like we had to build up everything all over again. So we went from having everything to basically not having anything at all.
What did you start what did you start to see in your family? What things did you not used to see before, and now you were seeing daily in your house?
The arguments. The arguments was one of the first things that I began to see. It began to be constant inside of the house. And like I said to you, my memory of me having a family, there was never arguments, there was never, those feuds between my mum and my dad. From everything that I can remember as a child before we came over here, there was never, tension between them. Everything was always happy. The environment was happy. We was always together, my brothers and sisters, all my siblings, we was always together. The family would always be together, morning, lunchtime, dinner, everything would always be together. But from when we moved over here, you started to see like a slight separation, like my mum and dad would not be in the same room together anymore. They wouldn't have that patience with each other anymore. So you started to see there was slight separation between them. And these were the things that I started to notice.
How bad were the arguments?
At the beginning, it wasn't that bad.
Little things.
Little things here and there, comments here and there. Oh, it was because of this, because of that. So you started to see the tension. But like I said, as I believe that the frustration was building up inside of my dad, you started to hear, you are to blame for this. And there started to be a blame game going on between my mum and my dad. And from there, things escalated. The arguments got more heated. The tension became more evident. They were no longer hiding it from us. So we would see everything. We would see them shout. We would see them, going at each other. We would see, and my mum was very, her temper was very, very high. So that she wouldn't hold things back anymore. So everything she would say, and we would hear everything and see.
So in the beginning, they tried to cover up or to hide from the kids that there was a problem, but then it got to a point that they didn't even try to hide anymore. They didn't hide
anymore. Everything was evidence. And the thing is, we was in between everything. Like I said, we never grew up with our mum and dad separated. So it started to be like we had to take sides. Either you go on your dad's side or you go on your mum's side. And we became like torn from an early age. And we started witnessing this constantly. It became something constant. Now the arguments started to be constant. And it was like me witnessing all of this. I began to absorb that environment. I began to absorb like the anger, you could see the resentment now between my mum and my dad. They kept clashing, they kept arguing, and the words that they were saying to each other now became at another level to the point that they decided to separate.
So what was the worst point in your family? You just said now that they decided to separate. Was that the worst point?
That was the worst point. During that argument, all of us were there. From what I can remember, all of us were there. But the way that the argument was, it was very intense. It was the words that were coming out to the point that my mum was like, I can't take it anymore. I want you out. So she basically kicked my dad out. And from there, it was like, it didn't end from there. It was like constantly the negative words against my dad. And all of this, like I said to you, I was just absorbing the negative words, absorbing everything that had happened. So naturally, it was like everything was there inside.
A lot of marriages, people think that marriages break down because of unfaithfulness, because of betrayal. Your parents were different, right? It was because your dad had a very successful career in Belgium, then your mom chose to come here. And your dad resented her for that decision. And that's what happens when a family makes a decision. They don't make the decision together. One of them makes a decision and imposes the decision on the other. Sooner or later, that person will eventually resent the other person for what they've made them do, because it's like your dad was forced to come here, right? Because he didn't want to leave the family behind.
And the thing is, he was, like I mentioned earlier on, it's like he was at the peak of his career. So something was about to happen in his career, and it was like sacrificing all of that to go to nothing. So you could just imagine there was a lot of frustration on my dad's part as well. But then having to start everything all over again, that just added to the situation inside of the house.
Did this whole separation and arguments situation, did that affect you as well?
Yes.
Okay. After the break, we're going to hear how that affected you. Okay. And if your situation resonates with what you heard here, then give us a call, because we believe that what helped Marie to change her life and her family, you will hear about that in a second, can also help you. The number to call is 020-7686-6300. We'll be right back.
Hi, the Chrissy B Show airs live on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, coming to your homes with entertainment, life issues as well as hard-hitting topics, coupled with friendly and practical advice. I love to look at the happier side of life and believe a person can achieve amazing things when they put their mind to it. The Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life.
I heard about the Help Center when my son invited me on a Tuesday for prayers, because the problem I had was incurable. So on a Tuesday was the day that you could come for prayers, and I did come. After much toing and froing, I did come on the Tuesday. I didn't give up immediately. I remembered that I would come to the Help Center, and then afterwards I'd go to the pub with my son and his girlfriend at the time, and I would encourage them to drink also, until about 2 months after I came, I heard the advice, I got advice, and prayers were said for me, and I was taught how to pray. And then slowly but surely, the addiction went. This was in July 1997 when I stopped drinking completely up until today, and I'll never drink again. Even if I smell alcohol, it's so revolting. Well, I remembered what used to happen. I'd stop drinking for a little while, but there would be this great desire inside of me to drink again, and I would go back to drinking. Even though I'd stopped drinking for 6 weeks, 2 months, I'd always go back to drinking. It wasn't until I came to the help center that I got the help, the active help that I needed, which made me stop drinking. I am Julie, and that was my story.
You saw the amazing Julie there. That was someone's mom, right? Someone's sister. Maybe you have someone in your family like that, someone that you've tried to advise the person, listen, don't drink, don't do this, it's bad for you. But it's not because your advice makes sense that the person will follow it. Unfortunately, sometimes you give the most amazing advice and the person doesn't have the strength to change. And that's when prayer comes in. So count on us for that. So we're going to go back to you, Marie. You were telling us about the story of your family.
Yes.
That your dad resented your mom because he felt forced to move here to the UK. Mm-hmm. That started to cause serious problems in your family, yes. Arguments until your dad left the house. Mm-hmm. And your family went from being very united to being separated. Yes. What about you? What did that do to you, Marie?
That affected me a lot. To the point that like I was saying to you earlier on, I was absorbing everything. I never grew up being angry or anything like that. I was actually a very good child. I was always good at school. But from when my parents actually not only separated, but it was actually the divorce. It got to the point of divorce. From the divorce, that was when I completely changed. Mm-hmm. And having absorbed all of the tension, all the arguments, I became a very angry person. I remember I was still in my teens, around 14, 15, and I was in secondary school at that time, and I completely rebelled. I became very grudgeful. I became angry. I had a lot of anger towards my parents, towards my family, my siblings as well. And to me, it was like I couldn't trust anyone anymore because of my dad leaving and my mum, having kicked him out. I couldn't trust anyone, and I blamed everyone for the situation that had happened. And the way that I went about it was, I'm just gonna rebel. I'm gonna go against everything that anyone says. I went against authorities. At school, I started to get in a lot of trouble. And like I said, I was a very good student. So at the beginning of the year, everything was okay. Then complete change at school. I started to get kicked out of my lessons. I got involved with the wrong company as well. I would go out, stay out late at night. I started drinking, many different things. It was like I felt like a deep hurt inside of me, and I just started to do many different things, thinking that all of these things would actually take away that pain, but deep down inside it didn't.
And actually your family already had enough problems.
Yeah.
Right, that they were separated, your dad had left, and you were creating another problem.
I added.
I mean, the more or the least you could do was to not give more problems, but you were creating more problems for your parents. How was your relationship with your brothers and sisters?
It was horrible. It was horrible. Like I said, I blamed everyone. I completely changed. The way that I was looking towards my family now was I had a deep hatred towards them. I remember speaking to my sister with no respect. I had no respect towards her. I would treat her anyhow. I remember even at school, I had a younger sister that I went to school with. I would get people to bully her at school.
So you would get people to bully your own sister?
Yes.
Why? Why did you do that?
Like I said to you, I absorbed so much anger, and this was my way of dealing with things. This was my way of saying, you hurt me, so now my answer is let me hurt everyone else. that was my way of dealing with the situation. And because the hatred was geared towards my family as well, I couldn't care less about them anymore. So I would do everything to hurt them. And at that point, I was stealing from my mom. I would take things from her, take her jewelry, take money from her bag. And I would have no remorse at that time.
How did you first come to know about the church?
It was, my mum started to attend, then my older sister started to attend, and my younger sister. So they would invite me to come constantly, but
so you were the last one to come?
I actually came and left, and then that was when the problems happened and the divorce happened, and then I was the last to come back.
Right. So when you started to come, what the change that happened in you, what happened?
It was, the biggest change was internally. Like I said, I had deep hatred towards my family, and I was very grudgeful. I held a strong grudge, especially against my father and my mum as well, for everything that had happened. I felt that the divorce completely destroyed the family. And I couldn't, at the beginning, I couldn't let go of that. I didn't recognize that I had so much inside, so much hatred, so much, grudges inside of me. And that was actually the first change that I began to see as I started to attend. I started going for the counseling as well. I actually attended the youth group of the church. That was one of the main one of the main supports that I had, because I was still young. I was still in my teens when I came to the church. So I had that support from them. I was letting them know about the situation, because I didn't feel that anyone understood. But when I would speak, when I would sit down and speak, like on a one-to-one basis, I could see that they were actually interested in what I was going through. And one of the advices that I received was that I needed to let go of all of that I was feeling.
How difficult was it for you to forgive?
It was extremely, extremely difficult, especially because I went from having one thing to having a completely different family, and I felt that everything that had happened was because of my mum and dad. So letting go of those grudges, letting go of that anger was like, at the beginning I couldn't do it. It took a while. It took quite a while for me to let go of everything that was inside of my heart.
How does it feel to forgive, having carried that anger for so long?
Yes.
And you finally forgive.
Yes.
How does it feel?
Free. You feel like everything that, because when you carry all of these things inside of you, you become heavy, you become stuck, you feel as though you want to advance, but you can't advance. Why? Because you have like this heavy load inside of you. When I finally did make a decision to just let go of everything, for the first time in a long time, I felt free.
So you felt like that weight had gone?
Yeah.
What about your family today, Marie?
They're completely different today, especially because I had many problems between me and my sisters. There were so many things. We could never be in the same room together. We had arguments, constant arguments between us. Today, it's like we're like best friends. We speak, we do things together. Of course, my parents are not back together, but the relationship between them is not as it was before. They're like literally best friends. They speak, my dad comes over, my mum calls him on the phone. The relationship is not as it was before, and that goes with all of my family now.
So you went from having a completely broken family to having a family that is united now.
Yes.
And you said something interesting, because you said your parents are not together, right? And sometimes because of things in life, it's not always an option, right, for two people to come back together. But at least you have peace, right? There's peace, there's understanding in you and your sisters, your brothers, you are united now.
Yes.
That hatred, those grudges are gone.
It's gone completely.
And you are no longer an angry person.
No,
and get your sisters bullied.
No, no, not at all. We get along. We're like best friends now. So.
That's great. So you see that. Maybe, and by the way, for example, just one more thing that I wanted to ask you, Marie, because you were blaming your parents for getting divorced and for making the family to hurt the way that they were hurting. But nobody says, I want to get divorced. Something happened. It wasn't really their fault. I mean, maybe they made a bad decision, or one of them made a bad decision. But sometimes you blame your family for something that is not really their fault. It's unfortunately circumstances led to something happening. You know, and you cannot go back to the past and do things differently. The only thing you can do is to try to make things different in the future, to do things differently in the future. So if you understand that, then there is no reason to blame anyone. Nobody says, I'm going to inflict pain on my family. Marie thought that after you had all those problems, but no one says, I want to get divorced on purpose. People who get divorced, maybe you have experienced that, because things didn't go the way you wanted them to go. You got married because you wanted to be with that person for the rest of your life. But something went wrong, maybe people made mistakes, but the important thing is to forgive. After the break, I want to show you an interesting video on forgiveness. So we're going to go into a short break, don't go anywhere, and also at the end of the next segment, we're going to be making a prayer for your family, for all the families. If you are watching me now, we're going to ask God to intercede, to touch your home, your family. We'll be right back.
At Christian Books Plus, we offer a range of Christian books, Bibles, gifts, DVDs, and so much more. Our aim is to provide you with inspirational reads and beautifully packaged gifts that will enhance and strengthen your walk with God. Our headquarters is situated in Finsbury Park, North London, and we have a few other stores located across London and around the UK. However, if you prefer, you can shop from the comfort of your own home. On our newly revamped website, you can find the full range of products that we sell, from children's stories to Christian music. Purchasing from us is simple and easy. Select what you'd like, add it to your basket, fill out your details and proceed to the payment section, where you'll be able to make your purchase securely and have all the items delivered right to your door. Also on our website, you can find where the closest Christian Books Plus is located to you. We strive to provide the best service at all times, with staff that are warm, friendly and always ready to help. For more information, call 020 7686 6000 or visit our website christianbooksplus.com. Christian Books Plus. Hope to see you soon.
Welcome back. I have a video that's prepared to show you now by Oprah on forgiveness. Now, I don't agree with everything that Oprah does and says, but sometimes she does say things that are important, that do make sense and that are helpful. So have a look at this short video.
He said, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different.
I think for myself, and I know many of you, you think forgiving means accepting what has happened to you. Well, it is accepting that it has happened to you. Not accepting that it was okay for it to happen. It is accepting that it has happened, and now what do I do about it? Forgiving
is giving up the hope, not holding on, hoping, wishing that it could have been any other way than it actually was. Giving up the hope that the past could be any different. And when I got that, I think it took me to the next level of being a better person, because I don't hold grudges for anything or any situation, and neither should you.
Now, that sounds very easy, very simple, but letting go of what someone did that might have hurt you, whether they did it intentionally or unintentionally, can be hard, can be difficult. Like Marie said, can be really hard. And I have to say that there have been situations in my own family, not recently since I gave my life to God, but certainly before, where there were instances where people wouldn't talk for each other for years, for things that were silly, that when you would ask them why they wouldn't talk to each other, they couldn't even remember. And the only reason why they couldn't come back together is because they couldn't let go of the pride and say, I made a mistake. Or, you know, there are people who go and say, I'm sorry for being upset at what you did. Because when you say that, you are automatically putting the blame on the person. And you should just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I did something that hurt you. And maybe you say, James, but if I do that, it's like I'm taking the blame. And I wasn't the one making the mistake. Maybe you weren't the one who made the mistake, but you were partly responsible for holding that grudge. You kept it. You could have just let it go. So somehow you're partly responsible. I was telling someone yesterday that, you know, because she was telling me, oh, sometimes there's arguments in my family between myself and other members of my family. And I was telling her, listen, you cannot argue with a wall. You can't argue with the wall because a wall doesn't answer back. If you're having arguments with your family, it's because you are part of the problem. The moment that you decide not to argue back and to forgive, then it is no longer a problem. So, you know, unfortunately, we like to blame everyone else in our family when something goes wrong. And the truth is that we are mostly, almost always, partly responsible for the problems that happen. And I want to invite you for you to take responsibility for whatever happened and to call that person, write an email, speak to them personally, saying, look, I was wrong to hold this against you. I was wrong in what I said. Or just say, I'm sorry. And that can be the beginning of a change in your family. Of course, if your family problem is not a feud, is not an argument that has happened, there are other problems. Part of the problems that happen in families is that sometimes you see people that you love going down a dark route in their life. You see them struggling. You see them making some very bad choices. And you would hope, you would want to go inside that person's mind, inside their hearts, and help them to make better choices. But you can't do that. Our influence in people's lives ends at the physical touch, because you can force, you can try to restrain the person from making a certain choice. You can try to advise them. You can try to motivate them to do something different. But ultimately, people have the power of choice, right? Even God cannot mess with your free will, cannot interfere with your free will. You are free to choose whatever you want, and sometimes it's frustrating to see someone you love going on a path of self-destruction, and you can't do anything about it. Now, this is where God comes in, because He can do what you can't. He can go where you can't go. He can do for your family the things that you would like to do that you can't. He can change a person. That's right, He can. He can change the way the person behaves, the way the person thinks, because prayer it's like a bridge that gives you access to a part of the person's life that you couldn't access before. And the one who goes there and changes that person is God. I want to invite you now, if you have even pictures of the family or of your family there with you, take them in your hands. Today, I'm not going to pray with water, with blessing the water. If you have photographs of your family members there in your house, if you're at home, take those pictures in your hands. I'll give you a few seconds. If you say, James, all the pictures I have are on my computer or my phone, then take your phone in your hands, because we will pray holding these photographs. It will represent that person. It will represent you laying hands on that person and praying for them. And I believe that by doing this, God can reach that person and change them. Okay? So prepare now the photographs of your family member. If you don't have the photographs, don't worry. When you close your eyes to pray, you can think about them, because God is going to touch them for sure. Okay? Let's talk to God right now.
Prepare now for the moment of prayer. If you would like a prayer for your general well-being, send your name and prayer request to prayer@findinganswers.tv.
My Lord, in the name of the Lord Jesus, I unite my faith right now with this person at home who maybe believed enough to take the photographs of their family members in their hands. And maybe they are holding these photographs now in the palms of their hands, asking you to intervene in this person's life, my God. This person that maybe has made some very poor, some very bad choices. And they cannot see that these choices are harming them, are damaging their lives. Perhaps this person is praying because they want the strength to go back and ask for forgiveness, or to say that it's okay that the past has happened, because nothing can change the past. We can only change the future. My God, whatever the case of this person's family may be, that you may see the struggle this person has had. You may see the pain this person has had, the tears that they have cried when they saw the pain happening in their family. And that now, as they ask for your help, my Lord, that you may come and restore this family. That's right, my Lord. Restore this family, restore this home. Perhaps, my Lord, others think that this family is a lost case, but I believe that for you, everything can be, you can change everything. You can make everything different. So I give this family in your hands. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In Jesus' name. I don't know if the production team can put the quote of the day there on the screen. I even told them I wasn't going to use it. But today's quote of the day is very interesting. Can we put the quote of the day on the screen? Very interesting quote. Look what it says. Right actions in the future are the best apologies for bad actions in the past. Right? And that's very true. That's very true. You can only make the past, whatever wrong that happened in the past, you can only make it right with your actions in the future. Once your actions in the future are different from what you did in the past, you then can have a different life, a different family. Okay, it's been a pleasure to be here with you. Tomorrow we'll be back again at the same time. Until then, look after your family, look after yourself, make choices that will be beneficial for you and for those that you love. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a wonderful night and may God bless you.